Awesome. Alrighty, team. So, look, if you've just tuned in, this is the 1 in 8 live special brought to you by Advanced Safety. 1 in 8. There are 1 billion workers around the globe. The International Labour Organization announced that each and every day, 6,000 people are killed in the workplace. We've made a commitment here at Team Advanced Safety to try and influence those 1 billion workers, whether directly or indirectly, by doing live events, doing things differently, and trying to make a positive change. And another person who is doing that very thing is a good friend of mine, Rosie Killip. Rosie, welcome.
Hello. Look, I'm liking that last speaker. I'm up for that gin-a-thon. The only problem is I'm a drinker. Bring it on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually brought back a memory. That was the last time I saw Michael was over a gin and tonic. So, yep.
I like your style, guys. I do.
So how are you, Rosie?
I'm good. And look, it's so interesting just what you're talking about. I think the lens that we bring is different. There are all those billions of workers out there in workplaces today, in buildings. So how safe is your building before you start looking at the words you say, the impressions you make, the trip hazards, the tools you use in your day job? How about the building that's underneath your feet and over your head? How safe are you there today?
Absolutely. And so that's a really lovely segue into perhaps the opportunity to tell the audience a little bit about Rosie Killip. So let's explore that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about who Rosie is.
Well, look, it is a great big accident in 1990. I fell into two things. The first was adult learning, workplace learning and development. It wasn't a thing you could study straight from university or into university. And it was just something I jumped in the deep end because my boss said, "Hey, you like public speaking, don't you? And debating?" I went, "Yes." "Well, look, here's all this law that's just come out of Parliament, and we'd like you to read up on it, research it, and go do some workshops." And I went, "I'm up for that." And that introduced me to the original Health and Safety Act in the early 90s, fire safety evacuation, health privacy code, and the thing that strangely I was not expecting to become a specialist in, the Building Act. So 31 years later, these are topics that are still of interest to me and is my sort of strange bent on it. And I often wonder, why did it bite me? And it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Down the bottom, our safety is a primary thing, and our shelter. So if you don't have those primary things, and we're seeing that now, aren't we, that people without the means to get these things are suffering from health and mental health, wealth. Everything about your life is connected, and it's such a Kiwi thing to have a home that is something that you can tutu with and change and welcome your family with. So for me, it became important. And strangely enough, rules are there. I was fascinated with rules. Rules are there for a reason. Road rules, health and safety rules, building rules. And some of them make sense right off the bat, and some of them don't make sense, but they're good for you. Right? Whether you like a medicine, whether you like it or not, it's good for you. And there's others which, fundamentally over all these decades need changing because they're not keeping pace. I mean, we're seeing that with healthy homes, aren't we? It's not keeping pace. Lifestyles, we have different cultures, different ways of living here, and our rules aren't keeping pace with the way people want to live, cradle to grave, extended whānau. So I'm fascinated with it still, strangely, and I always say that I'm going to be that little old lady in her 80s where they go, oh, here she comes, walking stick, wheelchair, whatever. She's still got another workshop in her.
That's right. I was just having flashbacks of your days on YouTube when you did a flurry of great videos where you had a vent about perhaps some of your frustrations at the time, and it was so insightful.
It's interesting. Rosie's Rants, they were called. We've now upscaled ourselves to Building Networks TV so that the other crew of our trainers get a chance to speak their truth. And someone was actually pointing them out to me the other day that Rosie Killip always has an opinion. And it's such a Kiwi thing. It's like, that like, you're breathing, therefore you have a brain, therefore you can say something, and why not have a view?
Yeah.
And if you want to share it passionately like I do, then so be it. If you want to be more low key, that's cool too. If you want to write a book, an essay about it, that's fine. But the world needs people to disrupt it. I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
right now it does. And
Yes.
crikey, I could go like my old suffragette sisters and chain myself to Parliament if you really want to see some action. But, these days, I don't particularly want to get arrested.
Yeah. Fair enough too. And so I'll definitely bring up the fact that you've recently published a book, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But you've mentioned building networks. So for people who may not be familiar with what building networks is, would you like to just let us know a little bit more about that?
So I started building networks in the year 2000 as my Y2K challenge, and I took what I was already teaching and put it into the business. So building networks is New Zealand's leading authority on building and fire compliance. We teach building code, building compliance for existing buildings, and our customers tend to be councils, IQPs, facility managers, and the building industry, and people who advise it like pre-purchase inspectors and real estate professionals. So health and safety professionals are certainly part of that mix, and that's where you and I intersect, of our common interest on that, but also our other common interest on personal professional development and people being able to speak their truth. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that probably leads quite neatly into your recent launch of your book. So perhaps
Yes.
let's know a little bit more about the book.
So my other business is called Switched On Learning with my business partner, Jen Tyson. And Jen and I have that mutual passion outside of building rules about people spend a lot of time at work, right? Yes. So we look after their physical health and safety, but what about their mental health and safety? And if you're not having a good time more days than a bad time, then what the heck are you doing there? And we've all got innate talents and strengths that maybe have not been pinpointed or identified yet. And we call these your superpowers. So the suite of things in our book is called Unleash Your Superpowers. And in that book, we talk about my part, which is about knowing self, knowing who you're showing up at work being, and are you authentically tapping into your passions, your purpose, and your skills and talents, and then pulling that together so that you are standing on your values. I find that more often, and I love millennials for highlighting that to us, but there are a lot of baby boomers and people at Gen X, Y, all the way through, who are now choosing workplaces not on their merit, their salary package and all the goodies, but on the fact that there's an alignment with values. And that is this sort of sweet spot of evolution we're in. Jen's chapter deals with on communicating all of that. We all get blocks. People are in the hot seat. People don't like conflict, vital conversations. So her chapters in the book relate to that. So we're launching officially on the 2nd of July, but the book is for sale now on Amazon and also through our website.
I love it. You're absolutely right. Like when I think back to my early days in health and safety, and also speaking with many health and safety people on a regular basis, the impression I get is that in our space we're still almost apologetic for being in the roles that we are in, and as a result it puts us on the back foot straight away. So when we're trying to impart knowledge or ideas, or here's some framework which might make this a bit easier for everybody, it's 10 times harder because the language is so restricted and so awkward. And so it sounds like your book, the mission, those superpowers, is just so timely. And then your other point around businesses finally evolving into mission and purpose being more important than financial gain. I'm seeing that myself in the wider work environments too. There seems to be a real shift going on, and I find that really, really exciting.
Well, it's so interesting, Matt, because I do work in this with my other hat on in the not-for-profit sector, and it's such a silly name because we all need profit. We all need money to keep taking it through, everyone. So people get afraid of the money conversation in this country, but the reality is we need the revenue to live in a capitalist society.
Yep.
But more importantly, if I'm spoilt for choice, if there's a shortage of workers and I am spoilt for choice is what's out there for me, I'm going to pick someone which I'm in alignment with. And it's the same with clients. They're not everybody fits for me and I don't fit for them, and that's cool. They can go wherever they want to go. But for us, having this pattern of, finding your sweet spot. I mean, I've got, teenager and I've got a young adult in my life, and watching them evolve and not having an opportunity to say, just don't get sucked up into the system before you understand who you are. So when you go into a classroom or to a friend group or to extracurricular activities or to ongoing study and then into employment, you understand who you are. You're not just a person with a degree or a person with NCEA. You've got all these other things about you. And why is that unique? And I used to study this myself, and this brings us back to the same thing. What makes people go into building compliance? When I started, people go, oh, it's just builders with a bad back who become building inspectors. So there's a good role for health and safety, isn't it? I'm like, there's much more than that. They've got intelligences that we would never expect. Why does someone choose architecture versus engineering? So I learned a lot about left brains and right brains and multiple intelligence and accelerated learning. Loved it. And then it makes me realize that people often still get slotted into spaces. I can't believe that 30 years later, people are having these conversations that I had at university. I'm like, what the hell? Haven't we moved on from that?
Yeah.
Where before you embark on something or just fall into something, understand that some of what is seen as a weakness by some people, or a boss who's not that good at HR type matters, or a teacher who's a bit distracted, or parents who don't know.
Yep.
Let's find out who you are and what is innate about you that brings you to this world at this time. You're here for a reason. You got to be doing something, and you could be doing anything. But if you're pushing it uphill, why bother? I've met salespeople in my career who should not be selling. They're just, everything about their profile screams researcher. And funnily enough, when they finally figure that out after a lot of pain and a lot of years and a lot of frustration and sometimes mental health, they go, wow, I've landed on a job I really love. Even in the hard times, building compliance is a hard sell like health and safety. So even in the hard times when someone goes, because I still care to ensure that a home, to the best of my ability, is safe for someone to occupy.
Absolutely.
I care to make sure buildings are purposeful and fit for purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. It really stems right back to the importance of self-awareness, right? Of knowing yourself, that emotional intelligence piece. I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks a lot, or has been recently, around sometimes you're not meant to be the number one in the business. You could be an okay CEO, but you could be a really amazing number 4 or number 5 within the business and really make a big impact in that space if only you knew yourself a bit better,
Yeah, and I listen to Gary and all sorts. My favorite Seth Godin, he's my favorite at the moment about marketing, obviously, as a business person, but he's got some cool stuff to say for not-for-profits about fundraising, so I'm tuning into that. But the thing I disagree with Gary is he has this lovely male American lens that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's organic. We think of it this way, not that way. And to me, there's a spectrum around that talent profile. It's like, if you understand your talent and strengths profile, you go, I'm not the best one to do promotion. I can do it. Right?
Yep.
But maybe I'm not. Maybe it's you. And maybe I'm not the best one. I can look at my accounts and financials, but maybe I'm not the one to actually go and do the audit to make sure we're on track, because I'm not a systems person or I'm not a numbers person. Once you get that, then you understand who you are, but also what makes up your team. People recruit like Michael was just talking about. You recruit yourself rather than going, oh, I need someone who's an accountant, but I need someone who's not a promoter financial. I need someone who actually is diligent with the numbers, who gets excited about the day-to-day routine, which would bore somebody else, but I still need this from them. And the exciting space is in the middle. How do we communicate to each other? Because we are on different ends of the spectrum with different bests and worst days that we show up at work.
Oh, totally. Well, look, Rosie, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. I know it was brief, but it's always lovely to
great, always.
We'll have to do this again sometime soon, I think.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for imparting your wisdom and thoughts. Very quickly, if anyone wants to get hold of you, where's the best place for people to turn to?
Yeah, Michael started it, so I'll continue. Find me on LinkedIn, Rosemary Killip, and we'll chat from there.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, look, you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, man. Take care.